In the headlines, President Park Geun-hye urges North Korea to improve its dismal human rights record and to end its nuclear weapons programs in her first UN General Assembly address. North Korea holds its second legislative meeting this year with a major decision expected, possibly on personnel or social affairs. And U.S. President Barack Obama calls for international efforts to fight against Islamic State militants, while another IS video has been released, this time showing the beheading of a French hostage. Hello and welcome to the newscast. Thanks for joining us tonight. Coming to you live from Seoul, I am Kang Chery. We begin in New York, though, where South Korean President Park Geun-hye made her debut at the UN General Assembly. Once again, she talked about her vision for an international peace park in Korea's demilitarized zone, as well as North Korea's human rights abuses. ARIRANG's Choi You-sun reports from New York.
While urging Pyongyang to lay down its nuclear arms and to start looking after its people's livelihood, President Park also asked the world leaders for their cooperation in first tearing down non-political barriers between the two Koreas. In particular, she talked about her earlier proposal to build a peace park in the peninsula's demilitarized zone.
UN 주도하에 남북한, 미국, 중국 등 전쟁 당사자들이 참여하여 국제적인 규범과 가치를 존중하며 공원을 만든다면 그것은 한반도 긴장 완화와 평화 통일의 시금석이 될 것입니다.
The president then brought attention to human rights abuses inside North Korea.
또한 국제사회는 탈북민의 인권 문제에도 관심을 기울여야 합니다. 탈북민들이 자유의사에 따라 목적지를 선택할 수 있도록 UN 해당 기구와 관련 국가들이 필요한 지원을 제공해야 합니다.
The Korean president also called past and present wartime sex abuse on women a serious rights issue, thought to be an implicit reference to Japan's former enslavement of Korean women. She then promoted her envisioned trust-building process in Northeast Asia amid tensions over historical and territorial differences. Reflecting how far Korea has come since joining the UN 23 years ago, President Park also highlighted Seoul's contributions to various global issues such as sustainable development, climate change, and education. Choi You-sun, ARIRANG News, New York.
Decision makers in North Korea's parliament met this Thursday for the second time this year. No official word on the meeting has been released just yet, but key topics are said to be personnel appointments and possible policy measures. But what's really piquing the curiosity of those watching from outside the regime are the whereabouts of leader Kim Jong-un. Ji Myung-gil has more.
The 13th Supreme People's Assembly has convened its second session of the year, following the first in April. The day-long meeting has brought together more than 650 delegates who will be making personnel decisions on key officials. Among them, Hwang Byung-seo, the director of the powerful General Political Bureau of Pyongyang's Korean People's Army, who could be nominated as vice chairman of the National Defense Commission. North Korean Premier Park Bong-ju may be asked to stay in his post, and Choi You-sun, a key confidant of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, could be named again to the country's top sports post, succeeding Kim's uncle Jang Song-taek, who was executed last December. At the legislative meeting, delegates were also set to announce a number of major policy measures, such as overhauling the country's mandatory schooling and conscription systems. Also being watched is whether leader Kim Jong-un is in attendance. Kim has not appeared in any North Korean media coverage since his last public appearance at a music concert on September 3rd. Speculation about possible health problems has surfaced, as he has been seen walking with a limp in recent news reports released by state media. Ji Myung-gil, ARIRANG News.
Preserving and promoting world peace is the primary mission of the United Nations. ASEAN member countries play a big role, of course, in those efforts. And this week, representatives have converged in Korea's Incheon to make sure that they are cooperating to the best of their abilities. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The three-day ASEAN Defense Ministers Plus meeting enters its last day on Friday, with ministers and defense representatives from 18 nations across the Asia-Pacific taking part. They have come to enhance cooperation in United Nations peacekeeping efforts around the globe.
Our goal here is to kind of show our fellow Asian countries about what we've been doing and what we have accomplished in the past, and also to learn from them as well. I mean, there are countries with, say, Indonesia, the US, and other countries who have expertise in this field.
This is one of 6 ASEAN defense conferences this year. Each one has a specific focus, with this week's being on peacekeeping. To get a better understanding of Korea's peacekeeping strategies, the group visited Korea's International Peace Corps on Thursday.
And the purpose was, from our side, to come and provide an update on the current trends, challenges, and priorities in UN peacekeeping operations around the world. We were also willing to provide a few updates on current challenges in our field missions.
Korea is known for its defense capabilities among ASEAN member nations. Since 1993, Korea has been an active participant in UN peacekeeping operations around the globe. Over that time, a total of 17 countries and over 12,000 troops have been deployed to different corners of the world, including Iraq and Somalia. On Friday, defense representatives from each country will discuss ways to increase cooperation by sharing strategic information to enhance peacekeeping operations on foreign soil. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chery for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on ARIRANG TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to. Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor are the two main pillars of Korea's stock market, taking up more than 15% of the total market cap. But investor sentiment has not been so hot for these two names in recent months. Connie Kim has more.
Poor performances from Korea's top two companies are reshaping the country's stock market. The share movement of Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor used to dictate the trend of the Korean bourse, but their influence has diminished recently, with many other companies moving in the other direction. Samsung and Hyundai peaked at a combined 25% of overall market capitalization in June, but the dramatic drops in their share prices in recent months have knocked their combined share value down to less than 16%. Roughly $60 billion have been wiped off the valuation of the two companies in the past year. In contrast, companies specializing in communications, textiles, apparel, banking, and other financial sectors have seen their prices go up by more than 20% in less than 3 months. This is partly because the Korean government began injecting $25 billion into the economy to spur domestic spending and accelerate a recovery. The poor performances from Samsung and Hyundai are being blamed on the strengthened Korean currency and other structural problems.
In the case of Samsung, the smartphone market worldwide has reached its saturation point, leading to a decrease in exports of Samsung handsets. Hyundai's recent purchase of land in Seoul for $10 billion has spurred worries of the company's cash flows.
Many component makers in the auto and electronics industries have seen their shares drop by more than 10% over the past 3 months. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Korea's individual debt-to-GDP ratio has come in at the highest in Asia. That's according to insurance group Allianz Global Wealth report. Korea's ratio stood at 93% last year, when the average of the 53 countries surveyed stood at around 65%. The Allianz report warned of household debt defaults, starting with the working class for countries like Korea and Malaysia, if interest rates go up or economic growth slows down. The face of the average Korean will look much different by the year 2100. That's according to the Korea Face Institute that's conducted a computer simulation based on photographs of some 20,000 Koreans. By the year 2100, the institute says the average Korean male will have thicker eyebrows and a wider forehead, while females will have double eyelids, one of the most popular cosmetic surgeries Korean women have today. One of the main reasons behind the changes was attributed to the steady inflow of foreigners coming to Korea, particularly from Southeast Asia, settling down and having interracial children. It's no longer an overstatement to say that whatever a company's product may be, the market they want to break into most nowadays is the Chinese market. And as our Park Ji-won reports, one group that's paved its way into that lucrative market are Korean filmmakers, that is, through partnering up with their Chinese partners.
A Wedding Invitation is a film co-produced by Korea and China, released last year. This romantic comedy made a huge splash in China, earning some $36 million, 10 times more than the film's production cost. The film's Korean director Oh Gi-hwan says he changed the film's scenario many times to make it appeal to Chinese viewers.
At first, I tried to remake my previous film, A Gift. But then I realized that the Chinese viewers didn't quite get some parts of the original script due to cultural differences. So I've rewritten almost everything with 3 Chinese scenario writers.
He says it's not easy to strike the right balance between both Korean and Chinese elements in one film, but says tapping into China's fast-growing market is certainly a risk worth taking.
There are forecasts that by 2017, the Chinese film market will be bigger than Hollywood, so it's a challenge that is worth trying.
China raked in some $3.6 billion in box office revenue last year, making it the world's second largest market, growing around 30% annually. And over the next decade, the gap between the Korean and Chinese movie markets will only grow larger. The two countries signed a groundbreaking film co-production pact in July that opened a door of opportunities for Korean filmmakers. But before then, it was difficult to break the wall of China's strict film import quota system.
Due to the film import quota, only about 70 foreign films got the chance to release in China, and half of those spots were taken by Hollywood films. That's why this co-production pact is important, because it helps Korean-Chinese co-productions be recognized as homegrown films.
Another encouraging development for film creators from both countries is a joint investment fund worth nearly $200 million, which will be set up next year for co-production projects.
Both countries share a common goal of stimulating their content's markets through the active exchange facilitated by the joint fund.
The joint film projects are shaping up to be a win-win strategy, allowing seasoned Korean filmmakers to test their creations in a bigger market, while China can gain from Korea's production experience and expertise. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
U.S. President Barack Obama called for a globally united response to destroy the militant group Islamic State. For more, we are joined by Paul E. at the News Center. Paul, this is Obama's latest call to action against the jihadist group, which has sparked widespread violence across Iraq and Syria.
That's right. This has been one of the most pressing world issues at this year's UN General Assembly. Addressing world leaders in New York, President Obama described IS as a network of death and that urgent action needed to be taken to counter this threat to international peace. Our Kang Chery has more.
Facing the mounting threat from terrorist groups, U.S. President Barack Obama made it clear at the United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday that the U.S. will confront and dismantle Islamic terrorists. He urged nations to reject the cancer of violent extremism.
The only language understood by killers like this is the language of force. So the United States of America will work with a broad coalition to dismantle this network of death.
He went on to asking the world to join the effort.
And already over 40 nations have offered to join this coalition. Today I ask the world to join in this effort.
Following the UN meeting, the Security Council unanimously approved a resolution that calls on countries to adopt laws stating that joining a militant group like the Islamic State is a serious crime for their citizens. Over in Syria, U.S.-led airstrikes continued to hit Islamic State positions on Wednesday. The U.S. Central Command said they pounded a dozen targets in Syria, such as small-scale oil refineries that have been providing millions of dollars a day to the terrorist group. But Islamic State fighters continue to make advances. They have intensified their attacks near the Turkish border in northern Syria, where 140,000 civilians have fled in recent days. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
And the IS militants are not just posing a threat in Iraq and Syria. A group linked to this group in Algeria claims to have beheaded another Western hostage.
Right, and France's foreign ministry has confirmed people's worst fears that one of its nationals was brutally killed in a video released on Wednesday. President Francois Hollande has condemned the act and vowed to push forward with airstrikes in Iraq. However, similar threats have now emerged against other countries and their citizens. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
It has been confirmed that French tourist Hervé Gourdel has been executed by a group in Algeria linked to the Islamic State forces. Gourdel was kidnapped earlier this week by fighters of the Jun al-Khilafah, or soldiers of the Caliphate, who threatened to kill him if France did not end its campaign against IS militants in Iraq. French President François Hollande condemned the brutality of Gourdel's death and vowed to continue his country's military operations against the IS.
Hervé Gourdel is dead because he was French, because his country. France is fighting terrorism. My determination is total, and this aggression only strengthens it. We will continue to fight terrorism everywhere against the Islamic State, which spreads death in Iraq and Syria.
The threat is also spreading to other countries. In the Philippines, an al-Qaeda elite militant group known as Abu Saif says it will kill 2 German hostages, first reported missing in April, unless Germany withdraws its support for U.S.-led airstrikes in Iraq and Syria. They are also asking for a ransom of more than $5.6 million. The Islamic State is also suspected of delivering a threatening letter to the presidential office of the Czech Republic in response to the nation's support for Kurdish forces in Iraq who are fighting the militant group. Local authorities are investigating the contents of the letter, which contained a white powdery substance. But unlike France and Germany, the Czech Republic is not one of the countries participating in airstrikes against the IS. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
And turning to Japan, Paul, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe there has made womenomics a buzzword for the country's economic reforms, but it looks like the workplace still remains a harsh environment for female employees there.
That's right. Government data shows that while the number of Japanese women who continue working after their first child has expanded, reported cases of discrimination are also on the rise. It's been a chronic problem compounded by Japan's aging population and low birth rate. Prime Minister Abe has vowed to tackle the issue by increasing the number of women in business leadership positions from 11 to 30% by 2020. Meanwhile, support groups have been cropping up to help women who have experienced so-called maternity harassment and are pushing for change.
The head of HR told me that if I wanted to come back to work, I should give up on getting pregnant. Rather than focusing on a small portion of elite women who are top managers, I'd like them to start by dealing with problems affecting women like us at the bottom.
Economists say that unless women take a more active role, the nation's future could be at stake, a sentiment which was echoed by IMF Chief Christine Lagarde. She said that the global economy is not making use of a great potential and that change was needed not just for women's sake, but for economy's sake.
And finally, the U.S. tech giant Apple is in the headlines again, this time for an apparent design flaw in their latest gadget. It's been less than a week or so since the iPhone 6 has been launched, but some early adopters are saying their new smartphones are already bent out of shape.
Unfortunately so, it's been done Bengate on social media sites like Facebook and Twitter, where a growing number of people have started complaining that their new iPhone was bending in their pockets. Technology websites have jumped on the problem, testing the limits of the phone's aluminum shell, and they found that the larger iPhone 6 Plus was the most prone to curving. Analysts say the issue has become inherent with newer mobile devices as they continue to pursue sleeker and more lightweight designs.
Devices thinner. This is definitely going to be an issue for Apple if it becomes really widespread. If we're seeing a ton of people whose phones are bending when they're just putting it in their front pocket, this could definitely become a major issue and a major concern. These are very expensive devices, and you expect them to hold up for at least 2 years, which is the term of the cell contracts in the U.S.
Apple spokespeople did not immediately respond to the claims, but experts say a mass product recall is unlikely and that Apple may instead issue free cases just like they did to solve an antenna problem with the iPhone 4. Nonetheless, this development is likely to create a publicity crisis for Apple for what's on track to become the company's best-selling device yet. Chery?
I wonder if it means they came up with a bendable display already. Anyways, thank you so much for those stories, Paul, and we'll see you back here in just about 2 hours.
Hello and welcome to your Asian Games update at this hour, starting with shooting. It was a big day for the Chinese, but there was still room for South Korean women and the Qatar men's team to nab golds of their own. A world record was set in the women's double trap competition. Kim Mi-jin blasted the field for a world's best score of 110 and the gold there. At the same venue, Qatar won its first medal, a gold at that, in men's team double trap. But after that, it was all China. They finished first in several men's events like the 25-meter standard pistol and 10-meter running target, as well as in the women's team double trap. And from the gun to the bow, let's get to archery, where the South Korean men and women got right on target in their team compound events. The women's team set a world record in their earlier match, hitting 7 inner 10s out of 22 bullseyes for a score of 238. They're off to the finals against Chinese Taipei on Saturday. Meanwhile, the men were also spectacular, finishing with scores nearly identical to the ladies. They'll face India in the finals also on Saturday. And now to rowing. China was again a mainstay on the winners' podium. As for South Korea, a lone rower found her way to the gold, perhaps inspired by the previous day. In the lightweight women's single scull finals, Choi You-sun sailed across the finish line first at 8 minutes and 1 second for the gold. The South won their second ever gold in rowing the day before. China, meanwhile, took 5 of 7 golds there. And going to the 3 sports specialists of the triathlon, Japan swam, biked, and ran their way to a golden finish. At Songdo Central Park, Japan's triathletes finished 1 and 2 in both the men's and women's events. Yuichi Hosoda and Ai Ueda grabbed the golds, and Hirokatsu Tayama and Juri Ide won silvers to complete the incredible haul in 2 events. Meanwhile, in women's fencing, Team Epi, China once again topped South Korea 43-19. In the pool, Park Tae-won managed a silver in the 100-meter freestyle. And finally, North Korea's Kim Eun-ju set a games record for the women's 75-kilo weightlifting gold. Well, that's all I have for now. I leave you with the medal standings. See you later.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the latest updates. What a wonderful autumn day we're enjoying here in Seoul. Now, earlier today, the eastern coastal regions woke up to rainy skies, which quickly cleared up by the afternoon. Not much in the forecast for tomorrow besides the fact that it is shaping up to be a sunny and breezy Friday. Also, keep in mind the big gap in temperatures from day to night, so a light cardigan will come in handy after the sun sets. Over in Incheon, where the Asian Games are taking place tomorrow, outdoor matches such as golf and tennis are set to be in action under clear skies. On to Friday's readings. Seoul, Daegu, and Gwangju make it to 26, Gwangju 28. On to other places. Daejeon and Jeju hit 25, Dokdo and Mount Kumgang 22. That'll do it for now. I'll be back with more updates after 10. See you then.
Yes, see you then, Bo-kyung. Thank you very much. And that will do it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.